everybody, and welcome back to the F2 show. I'm your host, Fraser Ford, and joining me let's discuss silly season, eh? I'm going to call it a silly season special. We have Inside F2 writer Lawrence Griffin with us. We have F1 Feeder Series podcast host Jim Kimberley with us, and we have Feeder Series commentator Chris McCarthy with us as well. Chaps, great to have you with us. Before we get into all of this, how are we all? Lawrence, enjoying the summer break? You've been away, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Lucky enough to go away over the summer break. It wasn't actually contrived by me to land at the summer break, but that's just how things have worked out. So that's been nice, and looking forward to coming back to some nice Formula 2 action after the break in Spa.
Yeah, completely agree. Looking forward to that. Chris, last time we spoke to you, you commentated. Well, you were getting ready to commentate on the Formula 2 at Silverstone, weren't you? It seems like ages ago now, but how was that?
Oh, it was an amazing experience. Landed on a really good race weekend. I think the sprint race probably still the best race of the season, in my opinion, and the feature race threw up some drama, to say the least, didn't it? And still went on to be a really good race as well once we cleared up the first lap incident, and thankfully both drivers were okay. Two new winners for the season as well, two rookies. It was overall just an amazing weekend. A dream come true for me personally as well. I've always wanted to commentate on F2 since I started in 2014. So it was a very surreal experience, and I have to say a massive thanks to the guys at F1 for giving me that opportunity, and to Alex Jakes, who helped me out a lot in getting ready for it as well.
Yeah, I thought you did a brilliant job, if I may say so. Jim, how are you? I suppose the world of feeder series never really stops, does it? So it's been a lighter few weeks, shall we say, hasn't it? No Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3. Have you enjoyed the summer break as we're halfway through?
Yeah, the headline acts have stopped, haven't they? There's still some things like, I think, Danish F4 and there's some British F4 on the weekend, but not so easy to watch or get so involved in. So it has been quite a bit slower, and even spent a weekend going to the beach with friends like normal people would, which is not really something I usually get to do. My day off is on a Wednesday, and I've just got all these friends saying, "Do you want to do this on Friday or Saturday?" I'm like, I can't, especially the time zone here that Formula 2 feature race is on at like 2 or 3 a.m. And so I'm trying to catch up on that without being spoiled. And the sprint races are on, feature F3 in particular, and Formula 1 qualifying like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So the idea of having a late night on the Friday, Saturday is rare. So yeah, it's been nice to feel a bit of normality. And the thing that really got me when I looked at some of the F1 calendar, I know we're all about Formula 2 here, but the F1 calendar, it's like there's a triple header left, and it's all double headers after that, which I didn't realise until looking the other day. It's no rest for the wicked. I'm going to be enjoying those single weekends with no racing on.
Yeah, make the most of them. I'm glad you feel like a human being again, which is very nice. Okay, let's. We're obviously in the middle of the summer break, aren't we? As we've just said, so we're not going to talk about the racing. We are going to talk about the driver market. Silly season is well underway, and it really took off at the start of the summer, didn't it? I think it's fair to say that a month ago, I think it's fair to say anyway, that we weren't expecting much movement in the driver market for 2023. I think majority of people were expecting Seb to sign a 1-year deal at Aston Martin. I don't think anyone was expecting Fernando Alonso to move away from Alpine. And the only real seat we were discussing was the Williams seat, which Oscar Piastri seemed in a pretty good position for. However, Seb obviously dropped a bombshell number 1. Fernando Alonso dropped bombshell number 2, and Oscar Piastri then dropped bombshell number 3. And you guys will know that anyway. If you don't know that, where on earth have you been? You've missed that week in particular. Was a pretty crazy week. So should we start by, I suppose, reflecting on the last month or so, Lawrence? I know obviously that's Formula 1 and we focus on Formula 2, as Jim's just said, but it does have a knock-on effect. So let's go back to before the summer break started. Obviously, Sebastian Vettel announced his retirement. Did you expect that? And did you expect what has then unfolded since to
Lawrence, if you did, I will be wanting to get the lottery numbers from you.
Yeah, of course. I didn't expect it. It didn't. It makes sense in a way in terms of how much more his personality and who he is a lot more involved now in things that are away from the track. as much as they are on it. So that move certainly makes sense, but I would have never predicted it. I certainly wouldn't have predicted Alonso to go and replace him with the way Aston Martin are looking. We know how they've built up the team over the last few years, the personnel they've been bringing in, the funding they have, that certainly Alonso has been considered there's a really good future there. But for someone that's still driving at a high standard in a team that's performing relatively well and equally says the same things about improving and making steps forward in the future, that's quite a jump to make. And the issue is the point at which Fernando Alonso is at his career. If he makes that jump and it doesn't work, where does that leave him? He doesn't have the next 10 years to play around positioning himself for the right seat. So a very interesting move. And then, of course, in much the same way that Alonso hadn't really communicated to the team that he was going to go to Aston Martin, Oscar Piastri, it seems, hasn't been communicating what he's been up to and potentially making a contract elsewhere, probably at McLaren. We don't know. And it's really left Alpine in a weird situation where they're thinking, well, who's actually going to be driving for us this season? And potentially that's a situation that one of the F2 drivers can take advantage of next season, because there aren't that many seats that look open for Formula 2 drivers to graduate to F1.
Yeah, it's definitely looking that way, isn't it? Jim, Formula 2 champion Oscar Piastri. We spoke about him so much on the show last season, and he dominated. I think that's fair to say. We know how good he is. You were surprised at that, but are we looking at McLaren? Is that the only option, really, realistically? That he's why else would you turn down Alpine? No,
I have no idea what's going on, but I cannot wait to find out. I don't think we'll ever find out the true extent of what's happening, which saddens me. Or maybe we will when Piastri's autobiography comes out in 30 years' time. So it won't
Drive
be
to
quite...
Survive?
I don't know, because there's so many things. You know, when Watch Drive to Survive last year, and you had the Toto Wolff George Russell thing, and you meant to believe that this contract was kind of signed in the Belgian pit lane, and it's like, well, that's not how it shook out. The dramatization of Drive to Survive is great for entertainment purposes, but when people as involved in the sport as we are, and the people who listen to this podcast, you do know some bits just aren't. That's not how it actually played out. So I really don't think we'll have it. I don't know where he's going to end up. McLaren, as everyone seems to suggest, is a likely one. There's a lot of smoke, and there must be some fire somewhere. But for the longest period, we thought he was going to be going to Williams, possibly on a loaning situation. And then I feel Logan Sargent might have upset some of that. It does seem like Latifi's days are absolutely done. I don't know if any team's needing the finances that his dad's company will bring. Maybe Haas, maybe. I don't know. But from Piastri's side, it's almost Alpine still want him, possibly. McLaren want him, from what people are suggesting. And Williams might want him. I don't know. Somehow he's gone from having no seat this season to 3 possibilities for next season. But I just worry that whatever kind of court of arbitration might have to get involved ends up with him either at Alpine, who then are begrudging him, or finding McLaren are wrong and they can't sign him, and Alpine end up getting, well, from, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but from rumours about Mick Schumacher starting to have contract negotiations or something, and Piastri could be left with egg on face and without a seat. So we're all speculating. We have no insider gossip. The only stuff that I know from some contacts is that there's some speculation that, I'll quote, Webber and Alonso might have been doing this and planning this when the opportunity presented itself. And some other speculation I've seen suggests that's the case. But I don't know if they're the right legal people to make sure this is, cast iron. But yeah, I feel some of the stuff that's happening at Alpine, with Laurent Rossi thinking he had all the cards, and he played against Fernando Alonso, who's been playing politics since he was about 2 years old. You're going to lose. Like, Alonso is such a political player, and my God, if I don't like him keeping other people out of seats, but if he brings this sort of drama for a silly season, I'm all on board for it. So thank you, Vettel, for stepping out to allow Alonso to have this political masterclass. I can't wait to see how it shakes out.
My highlight of the summer so far has been his Instagram story just after Oscar Piastri put his tweet out, which I thought was unbelievable. We all know what he was doing. Chris, yeah, I suppose who's in pole position in your books to get the Alpine seat right now? Is it Daniel Ricciardo? Is it GP2 champion Pierre Gasly? Obviously, Jim's just mentioned Mick Schumacher. A few people were potentially talking about, or even Zhou Guanyu. Obviously, those maybe a bit of an outside bet, but those links to Alpine. Obviously, a junior there last year raced in an Alpine livery. Any of those? Who do you fancy?
I mean, they're all great choices, aren't they? Really, that could all make very good, jumps to the seat. Daniel Ricciardo going back would feel quite strange given how it ended. It didn't, feel like it ended very well there, did it? I mean, I've said it. I feel he should have really stayed. Personally, I think he was doing really well there. He took going to McLaren was a bit of a thought he was going to make a step forward, and he ended up really just stepping sideways, and now he's going to potentially step sideways across again. So, I don't know. I don't really know if that would be the best decision for the team to just grab him back again, given how it ended. I think they'll maybe want to grab a younger driver that can help move them forward over the next 5 to 10 years. They're all good choices. Pierre Gasly would be the driver I would personally look at if I was scouting for them. But look, there's a young Frenchman in Formula 2 right now that is looking very, very hot, potentially for the title. He's just come off the back of a brilliant weekend at Hungary. He did that performance at a brilliant time, little to his knowledge that all of this was going to happen. And, two French drivers in a French team would make a very good marketing campaign for the team as well. Bringing this young French driver in, Théo Pourchaire, I think he'd be a really good buy for them. He could go and win the title, which wouldn't mean obviously he'd have to leave Formula 2 anyway. So I'd say maybe they'll look at, to potentially bring him on in the team in some form, even if it's not in that second seat.
Yeah, so many options. We're going to come back to Théo Pourchaire and talk about him because, that is absolutely something I want to discuss. Lawrence, obviously, if it is going to be Pierre Gasly, hypothetically, then where does that leave? Obviously, AlphaTauri, there'll be a vacant position there. Is there a Red Bull Junior in Formula 2 that could be in a position to pick up that seat? Or will it be someone from outside of the Red Bull camp that we have already mentioned on this podcast already?
I think if you actually look at the Red Bull Juniors that are in Formula 2 at the moment, I'm not sure if any of them have quite done enough to earn that next step up into Formula 1. Jayan Deruvala hasn't really been able to notch up the results that you need to stand out in that program. Lawson and Vips in their second seasons in the sport, it just hasn't quite gone to plan for them. They haven't quite shown the results. And then Iwasa has seemed very promising, as has Hauger, and obviously he's the Formula 3 champion. But for both of them, again, I think they could be looking very good for a seat in a year's time at the end of next season, but they're not quite there yet. So I think that does actually open the door, strangely enough, with the amount of talent that is present in the Red Bull Junior program, for a different driver to come in. Who that is much harder to predict.
Yeah, it really is. Jim, I suppose all of this, you've mentioned it already, the legal situation that could go on between Alpine and McLaren. I think McLaren have got a lot of legal situations on their hands at the moment, haven't they? But it does that push it back a little bit and actually fall into the hands of some Formula 2 drivers, in that Alpine aren't going to announce anyone if they want Piastri to come in. If it's, they're going to go through the legal procedures, right? If they don't win the legal procedures, that means that there's a seat up for grabs later on in the season, which is after the triple header. If you see where I'm going with this, it pushes everything back, doesn't it? I doubt that Williams are going to fill a seat, for example, if there's still a chance of getting Daniel Ricciardo, for example. Does that work into into the favour of some Formula 2 drivers, someone like Logan Sargent, Teo Pourchaire. If they go and have a really good round across the triple header, could they put themselves into the frame even more so than they are right now?
Yes, as a short answer, it could. I feel that at the moment it's so fluid that it's almost impossible to say. And I think there's some rumours about courting Fernando Alonso, and Lawrence Stroll's been the businessman that he is. That's not something that just happened over a couple of days, that there was a relationship there. But I feel the actual silly season behind closed doors happens way before we hear about stuff. So for us, this has all happened around Hungary, as it tends to do, right? I remember last year, George Russell being interviewed at Hungary with a beaming smile. He's like, "Oh, I don't know what's happening," and we all knew what that meant. But I feel those conversations happen pretty much in Bahrain, if not earlier. There's like so much, if you do X, then we'll do Y. So Alpine probably have always thought we'll have Piastri as our backup to Alonso, and didn't have a plan C. Maybe speak to Ferrari about having plan C, D, and E. But now going to be looking at that, right? It's not going to be a situation where they'll think, "Oh, we'll wait and make sure if Piastri, we'll get Piastri, but if he doesn't, then we'll assess the ground." They'll be having those conversations today, because it'd be just so amateur not to. So the triple header will be important, but they will have some drivers in their targets who could make the step up, but who those are, it's not so clear cut. So Williams obviously have got dibs, so to speak, on Sargent. Pourchaire, lest we forget, is tied to the Sauber program. I don't know what's happening with Zhou Guanyu, and he's done so much this season. I think surprising everybody, and probably frustrating in a really good way for Fred Vasseur. It's like, well, what am I going to do with you now? Because you're not going to get rid of Bottas. That's a real safe pair of hands. But Zhou Guanyu looks like he has done way more than I ever thought, and that's with no disrespect to him, but he's done way more than I thought he could have this year, that he deserves a second season. But maybe that's the thing, that Alpine will be looking at Zhou Guanyu potentially and making those sorts of, well, this is what we're going to do. But when you have those flow diagrams and it's like, if this, then that, and if this, I can imagine several teams have that in their, like on a whiteboard somewhere, to try and say, what's our plan? What's our ideal situation here? And you brought up the Gasly thing. I can't imagine Red Bull really wanting to let go of a driver of his talents, even if he's not going to make it to Red Bull, and he's contracted for next year. But we saw with Vettel how much a contract is worth when it was the Ferrari situation. We saw how much a contract's worth with Perez, and it's just, there's so many things you just don't know what's going to happen. It's Ricardo's situation. I don't know. That's the thing. So the drivers can do whatever they want the next 3 weeks or the next the triple header, but I don't think it's going to make any difference to the actual stuff. People have got those plans set in motion probably from the second Fernando Alonso said, "I'm off. I'm going to Aston Martin," and then frantic, "We need a meeting now. What we're going to do?" Those sorts of things were happening then, and there might be some element of, if the triple header does X, Y, Z, then we'll do A, B, C. But we're in uncharted territory, really.
Chris, obviously, if we rewind 12 months, we had 3 Alpine juniors absolutely smashing it in Formula 2. And had this situation happened a year ago, they're probably rubbing their hands together saying, perfect, we're able to put one of our Formula 2 drivers or juniors into the seat. Have they, I don't want to say messed up, that sounds really harsh, doesn't it? But, not having... I suppose some talent in Formula 2. Obviously, Jack Doohan, but it's his first season in Formula 2. Ollie Caldwell as well. Yeah, what do you make of that situation?
I mean, I think it's just all a really unfortunate situation for them. I'm not saying this to criticise Oscar Piastri in any way, but they put a lot of backing into him over the years. They brought him through the ranks. I don't think they expected this in a million years to get to this stage. To have him on the bench for a year and then to find out he's going elsewhere. So I think they planned it very well. It just the driver just had other ideas without their knowledge. And obviously, Oscar's got to do what he thinks is best for his career. That's motor racing, and that's what he's going to go and do. But yeah, I think they've just been a little bit unfortunate there, really. As you said, timing is everything as well in motorsport. Jack, they're in a year further down the line, and he'd be rubbing his hands together right now, and he'd be straight into that seat probably. So yeah, he hasn't quite arrived at the right time to take advantage of that. But there's other Alpine juniors, I'm sure, that can, people tied to that can come in and take advantage now. But yeah, I think I'll say it again, I think they have just been a little bit unlucky there, really, with the amount of backing they've put in, and all of a sudden it's kind of flipped on its head.
Do you think, Chris, and sorry to interrupt before you go in for it, but do you think that some of it is of their own making, with them not giving any sort of direction to Piastri? Because if I were in charge and I thought, well, Alonso doesn't want to leave, which is what it seemed to be, I've got that Williams seat sorted out ages ago to be like, this is what you're going to do. I don't know what the deal with this 1st of August speculation. I know you probably all know about this. That was a cut-off date. If they didn't try and preempt that, that's really amateur. But I just feel like some of this is of their own making, and they have to put their hands up and say, we should have really sorted this mess out months ago.
Possibly, it'll possibly be a lesson learned. Look, if you're going to have a driver sit on the bench, they might start looking elsewhere. Their eyes are going to start looking around the paddock ultimately as they sit there and look at how the other cars are performing, and you're in the paddock, not in that car all the time. Conversations are naturally going to start happening, aren't they? That's just part of being around the paddock. So yeah, maybe going forward, if they're going to do that again, they'll lock in a deal where there is a plan in place where, right, you're going to come in and be a reserve for a year, and then the deal's in place that you're going to take the seat the following year, and that's locked in. I don't know. I don't deal with contracts, but maybe that's something they could learn from this. And I think it's maybe something that other teams will potentially learn from it as well. It's something that's never really. I can't remember the last time something like this happened. To be honest, it's thrown a complete bombshell. And no one really knows how to react or deal with it. I've known Oscar since he raced in F4, and it was just a huge shock to everyone, wasn't it? But like I said, ultimately he's going to do what's best for him, and he's going to go for that McLaren deal. And now all you can hope for his sake is that all comes together for him. Otherwise, as Jim said before, he could be left with a bit of a sticky situation on his hands, because the legal team there are already fighting 2 cases now of the exact same nature. And there is rumours, obviously, that Alex might not be allowed to race in IndyCar next year. Those rumours were flying around. So I hope Oscar doesn't get left in the same situation.
I think this whole sort of situation calls into question, how much do you have to do to earn a driver's loyalty? Is making that investment in him, being part of the junior program, is that enough when you come and win 3 such major championships in a row like he's done, and that doesn't get rewarded with a seat in Formula One? Then I don't think you can blame Piastri for going off and making those other discussions. So I think Alpine have to look at and realise that they had a valuable commodity there. As with any business, they have a talented person there, and they haven't allowed them to progress in the way that they would want to, and I think in a way that their talent has deserved. And so then you can't be surprised when somebody looks elsewhere and ends up at a different team. And I think the awkward thing that we're seeing a lot now in motorsport is that the seats at the very top in Formula One are few and far between. And often, if you want to make that step up, it's not necessarily going to fit with the team that you've been affiliated with already. We saw it with Guan Yu Zhou last year. And so I think Formula One teams in general and junior programs are really going to have to look into how are we making best use of the talent we have, and how are we actually retaining it when it does come there. I think Red Bull are in a weird situation whereby I don't think they have anybody to make that step up this year. But then if they get somebody in for the coming season, that might then block the talent that is ready next season. If Dennis Hauger does what Mick Schumacher did, use the first season to gain experience, then put in a proper title charge in the second season, then will the seat be open for him, or will it be similar to what Sauber have done in getting in Guan Yu Zhou from a different program? And now he's doing well, and he's actually blocking that seat potentially from Teo Pourchaire, making what would be the most clear straight step up for him into Formula One. So the whole situation in the last few weeks, and in fact the last couple of seasons, has made it really confusing, and the affiliations drivers have is almost getting thrown out of the window because they're being pragmatic. They just want to get on in the sport. So I think that's something that everyone would want to be having a look at.
So I said the unprecedented thing earlier, and it's like a situation with the academies. That wasn't a thing, 20 years ago, 15 years ago? And it's almost now we're in this problem because we haven't really, or the drivers and teams haven't really anticipated what you do in these situations. Red Bull are kind of covered because they've got the junior team. Mercedes are covered because they had that partnership with Williams. But then you have Alpine's situation where it's like, well, we don't really have anyone. And Ferrari are in the best position because I don't know what this deal is now with the Haas and Alfa Romeo, but they've always had that connection. And with them providing engines, they've always been like, okay, we've got this driver, we want to put him in. So if Arthur Leclerc did a terrific season next year, they're going to find a house for him. But I don't know if this is going to be something we're going to have to, somebody's going to have to reassess how academies work, because the ideal is this is your funnel and you come up here. But when there's only two teams or one team to go to, that's not going to work because of how long contracts are getting signed for. I was massively surprised when Ocon signed such a long contract when they had so many promising junior drivers. Sorry, Chris, I knew you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, you have to remember like how quickly Oscar Piastri rose as well, right? He won 3 titles back to back. And I don't think Alpine ever expected him to be in a position where he wasn't allowed to race in F2 by the end of 2021. And I think they almost got to the point where it was, what do we do with him? There's no seats at the inn. You know, there's been many F2 champions who found themselves in those situations. One of those might just be coming back now. And it's been far too long for him away from the championship, from the paddock, Nick de Vries. Hopefully for his sake, he gets to come back. He just won it at the wrong time. It was as simple as that. And I think Oscar almost won it too quickly. I know that sounds absolutely bizarre to say, but had he had 2 seasons in F2, everything would have worked out probably perfectly for him. But he almost came up the ranks so quickly that I think, as Lawrence and Jim have said, Alpine, I think, just didn't really know what else to do with him. They had nowhere else to put him there. It was their only option was, let's keep him in the paddock and keep him as close to us as we can so we don't lose him. But in doing so, his attention's gone elsewhere, and now it looks like he's off to McLaren.
About the issue with junior driver programs and also the chaos that has been created, where does that leave somebody like a Felipe Drugovich, who isn't affiliated with any Formula One teams? Is it actually the perfect situation for him to take advantage of that? I'd be interested to know what you guys think of that idea.
I was going to say about Felipe Drugovich, a man that he's leading the Formula 2 Championship at the moment over Teo Pourchaire, over Logan Sargent, and we haven't even mentioned his name. Is he in a good position in that he isn't affiliated with any teams, as Lawrence has just said, or does that almost put him at a little bit of a disadvantage? Jim, what do you think? Or Chris, either? I
think he's at a disadvantage irregardless. I think at the moment, and the reason we haven't mentioned it because we're not, I don't want to say experts, but we've got a pretty good idea how Formula 1, Formula 2 and the feeder series work, that we know unless you have a shed load of money or a partnership with a Formula 1 team, you're not going to get up there. And if the rumours are to be believed that we've got Drugovich looking at going to IndyCar, that's just clever. That's the route he's going to go for. I know that there's some other rumours that he might go to Aston Martin, a reserve driver role, but it's kind of like, to what end? I don't think being a reserve driver is going to net you a race seat with the way the season is, or Formula 1 is, and the way Aston Martin are with the money they've got. I mean, the current rates will have Lewis Hamilton in a few years when Alonso decides to jack it in, and then they'll have Verstappen after. It seems like the world champions there. But yeah, sadly, I don't think Drugovich is going to make that step up. But in a similar thing to de Vries, it's not like he's done it in his rookie season. It's a third-year driver. It's almost the expectation that you've got to be a championship challenger or doing it. And I do think he's a talented driver, but it might have tarnished his reputation last year, getting completely outshone by Zhou. That you almost expect him to be leading the championship, or at least right up there. But when you're up against like the likes of Sargent and Fittipaldi as well, who have been right up there also, Porsche in his second season, those drivers, those generation talents everyone's looking for these days, they're the ones that are going to shine a lot brighter than somebody who's doing it in the third year. And that's an unfortunate thing for Felipe. But if he gets an IndyCar drive, then good on him.
Yeah, completely agree. I think IndyCar is probably his likely destination. Chris, quick one. We've conscious of time as well. We've obviously spoken about Théo Pourchaire. If it's not going to be an Alfa Romeo seat next season, could you see him going elsewhere? Obviously, you mentioned about the Alpine seat. Could it be a Williams seat? Could he potentially oust Logan Sargent from a Williams seat? Where do you think he could end up if he goes on to win the championship?
I mean, I hope he falls into one of them at least. If not a reserve role, I'd like to see him in the paddock somehow. I can't see him moving elsewhere personally. I haven't really heard that he's linked to go to IndyCar or Formula E or anything like that. So I hope that he's going to move up the ranks and into a seat. It's just whether there's going to be any left, because there's so many drivers linked with so few seats. Maybe a jump in at Alfa Romeo. As Jim has said before, it really just depends on what one contract signing does, and then the ripple effect will happen, and maybe he'll get his move into that. So I think that would be a good move for him. He's been linked with that program for a while, so hopefully we see him in there. If not, as a third driver somewhere, so he can have a year like Oscar Piastri's had, sitting on the sidelines, and then he can get into some contract talks of his own, and hopefully get a contract signed then for the following season, because he's been brilliant and absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, so much still to play for, and I think Logan Sargent and Théo Pourchaire need strong rounds in the triple header, don't they, to really throw themselves into the mix for those seats. Chaps, I'm going to round this off. There's 6 seats, 5 seats plus the McLaren seat, which really is a vacancy. I want to know who's going to be in the McLaren seat, who's going to be in the Alpine seat, who's going to be in the Alfa Romeo seat, who's going to be in the Haas seat, who's going to be in the Williams seat, and who have I missed?
Is that not all of them?
It might well be. Have I just named 6? It probably is. Yeah, Jim, we'll start with you. Who do you think is going to be?
I should have spoken up then. I've no idea. That's
McLaren.
Go for the drivers. And okay, so McLaren, I reckon Ricciardo still.
Alpine.
Then that'll be Piastri. I think Safnauer is pretty good at his legal stuff.
Interesting. Okay, Alfa Romeo.
Then that'll continue to be Joe.
Haas.
I don't know. I don't know. Porsche.
Yeah. AlphaTauri.
Yeah, I think Tsunoda. I'll be really surprised if he loses his seat.
And Gasly stays.
And Gasly, yeah. Gasly's not going anywhere. I think that's set.
Fine. Williams.
Well, what I've just said, Schumacher's going to lose his seat, so I'm going to have to say Schumacher, but my heart tells me Sargent. But yeah, this is the problem. We've just got a wheel of fortune and spin it. Yeah,
we need our own inside F2 Formula 2 team to get an extra 2 seats.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Lawrence, come to you next. Start with McLaren.
I'm going to say Piastri.
Alpine.
Well, it can't be Piastri now that I've said that, which is, see, I'm already tying myself in knots here. I've only just started.
That is how it works, mate.
I think let's say Guan Yu Zhou over Alpine rejoining us is
okay. Yeah, Alfa Romeo,
Porsche,
Haas.
There you go. It's making sense so far. Probably about to finish that. Haas. I think Mick should be staying at Haas. I think he will.
Okay. AlphaTauri. Tsunoda stays.
I think Tsunoda stays. I think that he's done. It's unclear whether Gasly's had a bad season or Tsunoda's had a better one, or the car's been more difficult this season. I think they'll keep him. He's fast.
Okay, cool. And Williams. Really, it's Latifi, Sargent, or De Vries. No,
I think it had to be. I think it has to be Sargent. I think they will make that step up. I don't know how much the last 3 rounds of the season could play last 4 rounds of the season, or the triple header could play a part in that decision if it hasn't been made already. But I think he has a good shot at that seat.
Chris has to get this nailed on, by the way, because he's had time to get this perfect.
I've been trying to write this down, but honestly, I really don't know. When you start writing it down, you confuse yourself so much because there's so much choice, and then it stops making sense. So where should we start?
Go on, reel
Because
them
I'm
off.
going to get lost halfway through.
Yeah, we'll go McLaren, Alpine, Alfa Romeo.
All right, so McLaren's going to be Piastri. I think he'll win the contract battle, and I think he'll sign that deal. I think Alpine will let him go. I'm going to throw a curveball in. I think Alpine will sign Gasly. I'm throwing curveballs into this, by the way, because I had some time. I'm not nailing it, like Jim said. So that's what my heart wants them to do. Gasly. Who's next after that?
Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, Zhou's going to stay. I think.
AlphaTauri.
Second season then. I'm going to throw. Tsunoda's obviously going to stay, and they're going to be forced to bring a Red Bull Junior up. They're going to bring Liam Lawson up.
Wow!
Silly season is kicking off again.
Okay,
so Williams will be De Vries, I think. Is Jim actually left because of that? I forced him to leave. There you go.
He's gone.
And Haas, I'll go for Sargent. I think he deserves a seat. So there you go.
Really,
honestly, that is really hard to do that.
I'm sure we're going to be talking about this. We could probably sit here for another hour talking about this if we had the time. But we don't have time, unfortunately. That is all we have time for. By the way, we didn't even get into the fact that Helmut Marko has been praising Mick Schumacher recently. Porsche coming in potentially. The German link, could Mick Schumacher go to AlphaTauri if they didn't want to bring a Red Bull Junior? We didn't even get into it, but what we'll do, we'll ask you guys at home to leave some comments on social media, on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you think, who's going to end up where, and what Formula 2 drivers could end up in Formula 2 next season. Please let us know what you think. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating if you've enjoyed the show. Basically, give us a thumbs up. As I said, comment some things on YouTube, so on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever you're watching or listening on. We really appreciate it. It really helps. Hashtag the F2 show if you have any questions or there's something you want to talk about on the show. We'll be back next week to preview Formula 2 returns to Spa next weekend. I don't know, maybe next Tuesday. I don't know when it's going to be released, but we will be back. So keep an eye out on social media for that. But until then, I've been Fraser Ford, and from all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.